A retired K9 lunges at a young mother trying to board a train, growling, blocking her path, refusing to let her pass. The woman insists she's done nothing wrong. So why won't the dog let her baby on board? Here's what happened. But before we get into the story, drop a comment below. Let us know where you're watching from. It was supposed to be a simple commute. The train was on time, the platform relatively quiet, and Anna, cradling her 6-month-old son, Caleb, was ready to head home after visiting her mother. She adjusted the strap of the diaper bag over her shoulder, offered a soft smile to the conductor waiting by the open train door, and stepped forward with the stroller wheels squeaking gently beneath her. But before her foot could land on the yellow line, a deep, guttural growl froze her mid-step. From the far end of the platform, a German shepherd broke formation, its leash straining, its body a blur of black and tan muscle as it charged forward and planted itself squarely in front of her. The dog didn't bark. He didn't snap. He just stood, unyielding, immovable, eyes locked with eerie focus on the infant nestled against Anna's chest. "Max, heel!" the handler barked, voice taut with confusion and urgency. The shepherd didn't flinch. His chest rose and fell in short, sharp bursts, tail rigid, head low, blocking the stroller with his body. A circle of tension rippled out instantly. Conversations around the platform fell to a hush. Heads turned. A few commuters instinctively stepped back, unsure whether to be afraid or fascinated. Anna froze, her heart kicking harder as her hands curled tighter around Caleb's little form. "What's wrong with him?" she asked, her voice sharp with nerves. "He's trained, right?" The handler, dressed in a transit security vest and clearly mortified, nodded as he jogged toward them. "He's retired bomb squad. He's never done this before." But Max wouldn't budge. If anything, the closer Anna got to the edge of the platform, the lower he crouched, growling deeper, like a storm gathering inside his chest. Caleb stirred, his tiny face pressing into his mother's shoulder with a sleepy whimper. Anna bounced him gently, whispering soothing nonsense, but her eyes never left the dog. "There must be some mistake," she said. "We're just trying to get on the train." "I understand," the handler said, breathless now, pulling at Max's collar with increasing force. "But he's never disobeyed a direct command? Not once, not even in combat zones." The conductor, now alerted to the growing standoff, approached with narrowed eyes. "What's going on?" he asked. "Why is this dog blocking her?" The handler looked at him helplessly. "I don't know. He's not acting out. He's guarding something." The words hung in the air like fog. Anna blinked hard, glancing down at her son. "Guarding from what?" she whispered. That's when Max shifted forward slightly, his muzzle nearly touching the baby's blanket. He didn't growl this time, just a soft, rumbling whine, like he was pleading. The handler's face went pale. "Something's not right," he said. "He's not protecting her. He's trying to stop something." And in that breathless, suspended moment, everyone watching knew. This wasn't about a misbehaving dog. It was about something Max could sense, something no one else could see. Not yet. Some backed away. A few whispered to each other with uneasy glances, clutching their bags tighter as they edged toward the far end of the platform. But Max didn't move. His growl wasn't feral or loud. It was low, controlled, vibrating in the air like a string pulled too tight. It wasn't the sound of aggression. It was a warning, a pulse of something ancient, something primal. Anna stood rooted in place, unsure whether to step back or hold her ground. Her arms cradled Caleb with a mother's instinctive protectiveness, but her eyes flickered between the dog and his handler, silently pleading for someone to explain. "What's happening?" she asked again, her voice now coated in confusion and rising fear. "He's scaring my baby." As if on cue, Caleb let out a soft cry, his tiny fists clenching as he twisted against her chest. She bounced him gently, murmuring soft reassurances, but her hands trembled. Max, unblinking, inched forward with calculated care, his head dipping lower, ears alert, every muscle in his body pulled taut like a bowstring. The handler, clearly shaken, tried once more to rein him in. "Max, heel!" he said, voice firmer, laced with command and hope. He tugged the leash. Nothing. It was like trying to pull a tree from the ground. The conductor frowned, now stepping closer. We can't hold up the train for this, he muttered. If the dog's not aggressive, maybe we can guide the woman around him. It's not that simple, the handler replied, his brow slick with sweat. This dog, he's been trained to detect things we can't see, and he's acting like there's a threat right in front of him. She's a mother, the conductor shot back. She's holding a baby. Exactly, the handler said softly. And that's what makes this even more terrifying. Anna gasped, shifting Caleb in her arms protectively, stepping slightly to the left. But Max matched her, moved with her. Still no bark, no lunge, just that deep, vibrating growl and those eyes, fixed not on her but on the baby. That's when a teenager nearby fumbled for his phone and began recording. The lens trembled as it zoomed in on the unusual standoff, capturing the moment a trained K9 refused to let a young mother board a train. It's like he sees something we don't, someone whispered. Dogs can sense stuff. Illness, danger, death. Death? Another voice asked, skeptical. You think a baby is dangerous? But no one laughed. Not this time. Because something in Max's posture, his unwavering stare, the protective placement of his body, the urgency in his presence, had shaken even the most cynical observers. Anna's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't a threat. She was just trying to get home. And yet, this dog looked at her child like he was shielding the world from something it hadn't discovered yet. The silence was heavy now. Not from peace, but from anticipation. Everyone was waiting. Waiting to see what Max had seen, waiting to find out if this moment was a misunderstanding or a warning none of them were ready to face. The sharp click of polished shoes against the platform broke through the tension like a knife through glass, and all eyes shifted as the conductor marched toward the standoff with tight shoulders and an impatient glare. His cap was tilted slightly forward, the badge on his chest gleaming beneath the overhead lights, and his tone cut straight through the air. What's the delay? He demanded, voice clipped, eyes bouncing from the frozen dog to the handler, then to Anna. The handler stepped forward, one hand still gripping Max's leash like a lifeline, the other raised in an attempt to de-escalate the growing pressure. Sir, I'm sorry, but Max is reacting to something. He's not letting the woman pass, and he's never done anything like this before. The conductor narrowed his eyes. So, get him under control. He's a retired bomb detection K9, the handler replied, lowering his voice slightly, but not enough to keep the word bomb from sparking a ripple through the crowd. Several passengers gasped, a few instinctively stepping farther away from Anna and her baby, eyes wide, breath catching. I know it sounds dramatic, but these dogs, they don't forget their training. If he's reacting like this, it means he senses something real. The conductor's gaze settled on the woman holding the infant, her knuckles white as she clutched her baby close, her expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. Caleb let out a soft, fussy cry, tiny arms squirming beneath the blanket wrapped tight around him. You're saying there's a bomb? The conductor said, his tone harsh but eyes flickering with something quieter, caution maybe, in a baby carrier? I'm saying Max thinks there's something wrong, the handler said carefully, and we shouldn't ignore that. Anna's head jerked up. Are you kidding me right now? She asked, her voice quivering with both indignation and dread. This is my child. I'm just trying to get home. I don't even know what you think you're implying. Her voice cracked, and she looked down at Caleb as if suddenly doubting the entire world. You really think I'd hurt my baby? Ma'am, no one's accusing you of anything, the conductor replied, softer now but firm. But when a trained K9 refuses to move, we can't afford to guess. We check everything. We make sure. You want to search my baby? Anna's voice rose, horror in every syllable. He's just a child. He's done nothing wrong. But Max growled again, low, pressing forward another inch, his nose angled directly at Caleb's tiny frame. The handler crouched beside him, placing a steadying hand on the dog's back. It's not about guilt, he said gently. It's about safety. And Max is telling us something he can't explain with words, so we have to listen. The conductor nodded grimly. Check the bags, the stroller, everything. Then, with a long breath, he added, if Max still won't back down, we check the child too. Anna's face drained of color. Her grip tightened. Caleb cried harder. And Max stood his ground, ears forward, eyes sharp, as if bracing for what only he knew was coming. The tension crackled like static in the air as two security officers approached with calm faces and shaking hands, their radios buzzing with instructions as they moved in on Anna with slow, deliberate steps. She stood stiff as a statue, her breath coming in shallow bursts, eyes darting between the officers and her son, who had begun to whimper louder, sensing the shift in energy around him. Ma'am, we just need to check your belongings, one officer said gently, hands raised in that universal gesture of non-threat. Anna nodded, jaw clenched, eyes rimmed with red. She handed over the diaper bag with trembling fingers, her purse next, then stepped back so they could access the stroller. Formula bottles, diapers, pacifiers, all removed, inspected, scanned. The officers checked under the seat, behind the headrest, inside every zipper and pouch. Nothing. All clear, one officer reported. A small sigh of relief passed through the cluster of onlookers, but Max didn't move. In fact, his growl deepened, his stance shifting again, this time a full step forward, closer to Anna's chest. He's not reacting to the bags, the handler said, his voice barely above a whisper now. It's something else. Anna looked down, confusion etched deep into her features, her lips parting slightly as if to ask a question she didn't yet know how to form. Caleb squirmed in her arms, the soft fabric of his blue blanket shifting just slightly, revealing a corner of white embroidery near the top, a stitched image of a sleeping lamb. Max's ears shot forward. He released a sharp bark, sudden and commanding, startling everyone around him. It wasn't just noise. It was a line in the sand. Ma'am, the security officer said carefully, we need to see the blanket. Anna blinked rapidly. The blanket? You think this is about the blanket? Her voice cracked, somewhere between disbelief and desperation. It's from my neighbor, a baby gift. It's soft, that's all. She clutched Caleb closer, the blanket bunching tighter around his chest. Max's bark grew louder. The handler, pale and tense, raised a hand. Don't move, he said quickly. He's not threatening the baby. He's trying to protect him. Protect him from what? Anna whispered. What could possibly be wrong with a blanket? But no one answered, because no one knew. All eyes were now fixed on the square of fabric pressed to the infant's body. One of the security officers took a cautious step forward, hand outstretched, reaching slowly for the edge of the blanket. That's when Max lunged. Not to attack, but to block, placing himself between Caleb and the approaching hands, letting out a bark so fierce and commanding it silenced the entire platform. Everyone stopped breathing. He's guarding the baby, the handler murmured, voice hollow. But from what? Silence pressed down like a weight. The train doors stayed open, but no one moved to board. In that moment, the blanket wasn't just a blanket anymore. It was a question hanging in the air, one Max seemed desperate to answer before it was too late. Anna's lips trembled as her eyes shimmered with tears, the weight of every stare crushing down on her like a verdict she hadn't asked to stand trial for. I'm a good mother, she said, her voice cracking under the pressure of her pounding heart. He's just a baby. I've done nothing wrong. She clutched Caleb tighter, pressing his small body against her chest as if shielding him from the accusations that no one had spoken aloud, but which hung thick in the air. It's a blanket, she continued, voice rising, raw with disbelief. A gift from my neighbor. Just something warm, that's all. Her breath was coming faster now, panic flickering behind her eyes. The conductor took a measured step forward, hands open, calm but firm. Ma'am, please. We need to see what's under the blanket. The dog clearly senses something, and we can't ignore that. He's wrong, she snapped, but it came out more like a plea than a protest. He's a dog. My baby is not a threat, and no one's saying he is, the handler said gently, stepping closer, Max still bristling at his side. But Max has never reacted like this before, and he's not just reacting, he's warning us. Anna's face crumpled. He's never even been sick, she whispered. as if listing reasons that absolved her. I read all the parenting books. I sanitize his bottles. She took a step back. Max growled again, sharp and guttural, his body trembling now, not from aggression or fear, but from something deeper, something urgent, instinctual, unshakable. His entire frame quivered with tension, tail straight, ears locked forward, eyes burning into the bundle in Anna's arms. "Ma'am," the security officer said softly, "please let us help." "No," she gasped, another step back, her shoulder hitting the steel support beam of the platform awning. "You don't understand. He's all I have. Don't touch him." "Then let me hold him," the handler offered, his voice low, steady, laced with a calm that had pulled soldiers out of panic zones. "Just for a second. Let me check. Let me prove there's nothing wrong." She shook her head once, then paused, her eyes locked with Max's. He didn't look angry. He looked desperate, like he knew time was running out. Something in that stare, so human in its urgency, cut through her fear. Her arms slowly loosened, but before she could hand Caleb over, the handler made the call. "I'm sorry," he said, and nodded. The two officers moved in. Gentle, careful, practiced. Anna cried out, but didn't fight. One took her by the shoulders, speaking softly, while the other reached for the baby, slowly, as if diffusing a bomb. And in a way, they were. Max stood frozen, the growl fading, replaced by a tense, watchful silence as Caleb was lifted carefully from his mother's arms. The blanket remained wrapped tightly around his tiny body. The dog took one step forward, then two, his nose inches from the fabric. Every breath he took shallow and alert. The handler nodded once. "Unwrap it," he said. No one blinked. Everyone watched. And the world seemed to hold its breath. The moment Caleb was separated from his mother's arms, the world seemed to tilt sideways. His cries rang out in short, panicked gasps, little fists flailing, as if begging to return to the safety of her chest, unaware of the eyes locking onto him from all sides. Anna sobbed, arms limp at her sides, as two officers carefully carried the infant toward the open space near the platform's center, where Max stood like a sentinel. His growl now silent, but his body still coiled, locked in unwavering focus. The handler crouched beside the baby, his gloved hands trembling slightly as he reached toward the blanket. "Stay back," he said to the officers, his voice tight and urgent. "If Max was right, this isn't just fabric." He moved slowly, fingers lifting the edge of the soft, embroidered blanket that had looked so innocent moments before. The first layer peeled away, revealing nothing unusual. Then the second, then the third. And that's when everything stopped. The platform fell into a silence so complete, it was as if sound itself had vanished. Strapped tightly against Caleb's chest, hidden beneath the final fold of fleece, was a thin black device, wires coiled in organized loops. A small blinking red light pulsed steadily at its center. There was no mistaking what it was. "Oh my God," one officer breathed. The handler's face drained of color. "It's real," he said, barely above a whisper. "That's a trigger." Caleb whimpered, the tiny rise and fall of his chest making the light blink faster. The device was sewn into the fabric of the onesie itself, meticulously, deliberately, disguised as a padded insert but wired with chilling precision. The officers instinctively stepped back, radios squawking with urgent chatter. "Get the bomb unit," someone hissed. "Clear the platform." A woman fainted near the far bench. A man dropped his coffee. Somewhere, a child began to scream. But Max stayed perfectly still, tail low, eyes never leaving the baby. "He was never trying to attack," the handler said, his voice breaking with the weight of the truth. "He was trying to warn us. This baby, he's not the threat. He's the victim." Anna collapsed to her knees, wailing, her hands covering her mouth as if to block out the horror unfolding before her. "I didn't know," she cried. "I didn't know that blanket. It was from my neighbor. She said it was handmade. She said—" Her words dissolved into sobs. The handler gently touched Caleb's forehead, his other hand hovering near the device, but not daring to touch it. If the train had started moving— He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Everyone could see it now. The reality was too sharp, too terrifying. Caleb had become an unwitting vessel, a baby turned into a bomb by hands that never intended for anyone to suspect a thing. And the only reason they knew was because a retired K9 refused to look away. Panic was no longer a whisper. It was a full-throated roar, sweeping across the station like wildfire. Passengers ran in every direction, some stumbling, some screaming, others clutching loved ones as they scrambled for the exits. The evacuation order had come through seconds after the red light was confirmed real, and now every corner of the platform buzzed with urgency and chaos. But at the heart of it all, in the clearing they'd carved out on the cold concrete, stood Max, unmoving, unwavering, eyes locked on the child, who had no idea he was carrying death on his chest. The baby's cries had softened to whimpers now, tiny fists twitching as the blinking light above his heart pulsed steadily like a second heartbeat. The bomb unit arrived in full gear, suits padded and visors down, voices calm but clipped as they assessed the scene. The handler quickly briefed them, pointing to the exact stitching where the device was sewn, explaining how Max had reacted, not with aggression but with warning, with a protective instinct that had bypassed even the sharpest human minds. One of the techs kneeled beside Caleb, examining the wiring without touching it, and his face went rigid beneath the helmet. "Pressure activated," he muttered into the comm. If the train had moved, the vibration alone might have set it off. The words sent another shiver through the crowd of officers and responders. "How in the hell did it get on him?" someone asked. Anna sat slumped against the wall nearby, her hands cuffed not out of guilt but protocol, sobbing so hard her body shook with each breath. "It was a gift," she kept repeating, like a prayer, like a curse. "Just a gift from my neighbor. I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know." The conductor, still pale, stood nearby, watching the scene unfold as if in a dream. "She was supposed to board," he said numbly. "They would have all died, everyone on that train." "That's the point," one of the bomb techs said grimly. "Maximum damage, minimum suspicion. A mother and baby? No one questions that." Caleb let out a soft hiccup and Max inched closer, his head tilting slightly, ears raised but relaxed. Body language gentle now, not guard dog, not soldier, just a watchful protector. "He's calming him," the handler whispered. "Even now, with all this happening, Max is keeping him calm. And probably keeping him alive," the tech added. "We trigger this wrong, it's over in seconds." They worked quickly, communicating in code and clipped instructions, surrounding the baby like surgeons at an open-heart procedure. Every second felt suspended, stretched thin by the stakes and the silence. Max didn't move, not once, not until the lead technician looked up with a trembling breath and said, "We've isolated the trigger." A collective inhale swept through the responders. The red lights stopped blinking. The silence broke with a single, staggering truth. The boy with the timer had been saved. Not by machines, not by humans, but by a dog who refused to let danger board that train. Anna collapsed to the ground, her body folding in on itself as if the weight of the truth had finally crushed whatever strength she had left. Her hands covered her face, her shoulders trembling, and the sound she made wasn't a scream or a cry. It was the low, broken wail of a mother unraveling at the seams. The officers didn't restrain her. They didn't need to. The truth had already shackled her in a prison no bars could replicate. The neighbor, Mara, or at least that's what she called herself, had moved into the building 3 months ago. Quiet, friendly, kind. The kind of woman who brought baked goods to tenants and complimented people's children in the hallway. Anna had first met her by the mailbox. A pleasant conversation, then again in the laundry room. Then one day when Anna was juggling groceries and a crying Caleb, Mara offered to help. Just a few minutes, just to rock the baby while Anna put the milk away. She seemed safe. Familiar, even. Maybe it was the smile. Maybe it was the softness in her voice. But trust crept in like a fog, unnoticed until it was everywhere. Then came the gift. "I saw this at the farmer's market," Mara had said sweetly. "Hand-stitched, just for him. I couldn't resist." It was the blanket, the same one that had hidden a nightmare beneath its gentle folds. Anna, sleep-deprived from endless feedings, emotionally raw from a divorce, that had left her alone and spiraling, didn't question it. She thanked her. She even wrote a thank you note. She never imagined it was anything more than a kind gesture. But now the pieces snapped together like trap springs. The lack of a rental record. The odd hours. The fact that no one else in the building remembered seeing Mara's apartment door open. Whoever she was, she hadn't just been passing through. She had been watching, studying, waiting. And Anna, fragile and desperate for normalcy, had given her the perfect opening. She'd allowed a stranger to hold her child, and that stranger had turned him into a weapon. The detective's voice was calm but pointed. We believe Mara's real identity is still unknown. Facial recognition gave us nothing. We think she may be tied to a larger network. This wasn't random. It was calculated. Anna shook her head, horror twisting her features. I never thought someone would use him. She looked toward the medics, now wrapping Caleb in a clean, hospital-issued blanket, and her soul seemed to split. He's just a baby, she whispered. He didn't even have words yet. The handler crouched beside her, Max seated like a statue at his side. You were used, he said gently, but your baby is safe because Max didn't hesitate. He didn't care about appearances. He saw the truth when none of us did. Anna looked up, eyes hollow and shining. He saved my son, she whispered. The handler nodded. And maybe more than just him. Because as the crowd thinned, as the authorities began piecing together what could have been a tragedy of unspeakable scale, one fact became clear. The plan had been perfect, the execution flawless, the weapon invisible. But Max had ruined everything. Because instinct doesn't lie, and loyalty doesn't forget how to protect. Max finally sat down, not with the weight of exhaustion, but with the stillness of a soldier who knows the mission is complete. His breathing slowed, his ears no longer alert but relaxed, folding slightly as the tension drained from his sturdy frame. The platform around him buzzed with activity, medics rushing to double-check Caleb's vitals, investigators snapping photos of the dismantled device, and officers making calls to national agencies. But Max didn't move. His eyes, dark and steady, never left the stroller where the baby had once rested, the blanket that had masked death now crumpled and discarded a few feet away. Caleb had been safely lifted into the arms of a pediatric paramedic, the bomb carefully removed by experts and tucked into a lead case, the nightmare diffused and neutralized. But the emotional fallout remained, hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. Anna stood near the edge of the chaos, cradling Caleb again with trembling arms, her tear-streaked face pale and distant. She didn't speak, didn't sob, didn't argue. She just held her son as if letting go would shatter her into pieces. And still, Max watched. The crowd had doubled by now, word spreading like wildfire across social media, pulling in curious onlookers, news vans, and reporters eager to capture the moment. Microphones were extended, questions shouted, lenses zoomed in on the dog at the center of the storm. But Max didn't flinch. He didn't seek the cameras or react to the praise. He didn't need to be told he was a hero. He didn't need a ceremony or a medal or even a pat on the head. His purpose had never been about recognition. It had been about one thing: protect. The handler crouched beside him, running a gentle hand over his back, whispering something only Max could hear. Maybe it was praise. Maybe it was thanks. Maybe it was an apology for doubting him in that first chaotic moment. Whatever it was, Max didn't need the words. He had never acted for them. A small girl approached hesitantly, maybe 6 or 7, her backpack dragging on one shoulder, as she stepped past the yellow tape. Her father tried to stop her, but she slipped away and crouched beside Max, offering a timid hand. You saved that baby, she said quietly. Max glanced at her, gave a single slow blink, and leaned forward to nuzzle her palm. She smiled, tears glinting in her eyes, then turned and ran back to her father. The handler watched, his throat tight. You always knew, didn't you? He said under his breath. Max simply looked forward again, back at the stroller, back at the place where something nearly unimaginable had been stopped. A dog trained for war, retired into peace, called back into duty not by command but by instinct. He hadn't hesitated. He hadn't doubted. While others asked questions, he acted. And in that act, he saved lives, not because someone told him to, but because deep down, Max had never stopped being a guardian. In the days that followed, the world clung to the story like a lifeline. News anchors reciting every detail, articles splashed with bold headlines calling Max a savior, a miracle, a legend. Pictures of the stoic German shepherd flooded every screen, standing tall beside the stroller, eyes locked in protective focus, as if daring danger to come closer. But behind all the noise and praise, it was a single image that stayed burned in the hearts of millions. Not the device, not the crowd, not even the heroic takedown. It was that moment when a dog, retired and quiet, stepped into chaos and simply refused to move. Not because he was told to, not because anyone asked him, but because somewhere deep in the marrow of his being, he knew that baby needed him. The story never faded. It became a part of station folklore, a tale retold by conductors to new recruits, by mothers to their children as they passed through the terminal. A plaque was eventually mounted on the wall near Platform 4, with a small bronze sculpture of Max's paw and a quote etched beneath it. He didn't speak, but he spoke volumes. Months passed, seasons shifted, and time, as it always does, softened the sharp edges of memory. But Max grew older, slower, his walks shorter, his naps longer. The same body that had once leapt into gunfire, then stood before a baby wrapped in danger, now moved with the careful deliberation of age. The handler, his partner, his friend, never left his side. He knew Max's days were drawing to a close. There were no speeches, no ceremonies. Just a warm afternoon sun, a quiet yard, and a soft, final breath as Max curled beside his favorite toy, eyes fluttering closed in peace. When the news of his passing reached the world, it stirred a silence deeper than grief. It was reverence. Tributes poured in. Drawings from children. Flowers at the train station. Letters addressed simply to the dog who knew. But the most poignant goodbye came not from a crowd, not from the press, but from a little boy who once wore a ticking timer on his chest. Caleb, now a toddler with wide, thoughtful eyes, toddled alongside his mother through the field behind the handler's home. He held something in his small hands, a pillow stitched from the same blanket that once hid terror beneath its folds. They approached the grave quietly, the earth still fresh, a simple stone marked with a single name, Max. Caleb knelt beside it without prompting. He placed the pillow down gently, smoothing it with his palm as if tucking the dog in one last time. Then, with a gravity far beyond his years, he leaned in and whispered, "He saved me." And he never even needed to bark. Anna wiped her tears, kneeling beside her son. The wind rustled the grass, and for a moment, the world felt still, like even time was bowing its head. Because some heroes don't need capes, some don't need words, some just need to know when not to move.